Chapter 1. The Paradox of Manifestation. Manifestation begins as a spark, an inner pull toward something greater, a desire, a vision, a feeling of potential rising inside your chest. At first it's exciting. You feel connected to possibility, inspired by the idea that you can co-create your reality with the universe. You start to set intentions, write goals, visualize outcomes. You speak things into existence. You journal, meditate, repeat mantras, listen to teachings. You build momentum. But somewhere along the path something shifts. The desire that once felt light and electric begins to feel heavy. You start to notice its absence more than its promise. The energy shifts from expansion to contraction. You no longer feel like you're attracting, you feel like you're chasing. This is the paradox most people encounter in the manifestation journey, and where many begin to lose faith. The more you want something, the harder it can be to receive it. The more attention you place on the fact that it's not here yet, the more you amplify the experience of lack. What once was a signal of intention becomes a signal of absence. And this is where the paradox reveals itself. What you chase tends to run, and what you release often flows in. Manifestation is not simply about wanting. Everyone wants, everyone has desires, but not everyone knows how to hold desire with the right energy. The universe doesn't respond to begging. It doesn't move in response to desperation. It's tuned into frequency, not volume. And frequency is determined by belief. Not surface belief, not verbal affirmations alone, but your felt truth. What you quietly expect in your heart, without noise or performance, is what you ultimately receive. This expectation isn't loud, it's subtle. It's a form of inner knowing that doesn't need constant reassurance. It's calm, and it's incredibly magnetic. But to reach that level of calm expectation, something has to shift inside. You must detach not from the vision, but from the need to control how and when it happens. You must release your grip on the outcome, not because you don't care, but because clinging distorts your energy. You must become the version of you who no longer identifies as the person trying to manifest, but instead lives as the one who already expects it naturally. This is where the real work begins, not in adding more effort, but in removing resistance, not in proving your worthiness, but in realizing it was never in question. The paradox deepens when you begin to see that detachment is not the same as giving up. It's not passive, it's not a lack of desire. It's pure, energetic alignment. It's the act of holding the vision in your heart while releasing the tension in your grip. You can want something and yet not suffer over its delay. You can hold a goal without turning it into an obsession. You can move toward a dream without placing your worth on whether it manifests in a specific form. And that's the very state that allows it to come with ease. Think about the things in your life that arrived when you weren't forcing them. The friendships that just fell into place. The opportunities that showed up when you were relaxed and open. The moments when you weren't trying so hard. And everything aligned. That is the frequency of detachment. That is the paradox. What you thought required effort actually needed ease. What you thought you had to force only asked for space. What you thought was about doing more was actually about trusting more. This doesn't mean action is irrelevant. It means action is most effective when taken from a place of aligned energy. If your actions are driven by panic, fear of missing out, or a belief that things will fall apart if you don't push, then those actions carry the weight of resistance. But when your actions come from a place of trust, presence, and quiet confidence, they're clean. They carry the frequency of already having, not trying to get, and the universe reads that frequency clearly. The paradox of manifestation isn't a trick. It's an invitation to realign your approach. It's an awakening to a deeper truth. The universe mirrors your dominant state, not your loudest request. If you embody the energy of someone who needs, you stay in the frequency of needing. If you embody the energy of someone who already knows it's done, you shift into receiving. The shift is subtle but powerful. You move from gripping to grounding, from hoping to knowing, from controlling to trusting. You stop measuring time and start deepening presence. You stop asking when it will happen and start aligning with who you need to be while it unfolds. The irony is that the moment you truly detach, not pretend to, but truly feel at peace with any outcome, you create the energetic space for the desired outcome to arrive, not because you stopped wanting it, but because you stopped needing it to prove your worth. The first step in mastering this paradox is becoming aware of your current state. Are you chasing or attracting? Are you in alignment or resistance? Are you quietly expecting or loudly hoping? These questions are not meant to judge, but to guide. When you can recognize where your energy is misaligned, you regain your power to shift it. Manifestation is not magic, it's resonance. And resonance requires coherence between your inner world and your outer desire. To attract love, you must feel love. To attract abundance, you must expect abundance. To attract peace, you must embody peace. And the more you learn to hold your desires with calm detachment and quiet expectation, the more life begins to meet you there, not because you forced it, but because you became the version of you who naturally receives it. Let go, not as a tactic, but as a transformation. Expect quietly, not as a trick, but as a truth. You don't have to chase what you're meant to receive, you just have to stop getting in the way. Chapter 2. The Power of Quiet Expectation. There is a frequency in the universe more potent than hustle, louder than affirmation, and more magnetic than desire alone. It's not flashy, it's not broadcasted on social media, it's not announced in morning rituals or repeated in forced mantras. It's quiet, subtle, and deeply rooted. It lives in the background of your thoughts, in the calm undercurrent of your energy, and it reveals itself in the choices you make when no one is watching. This force is quiet expectation, the internal knowing that what you desire is already on its way, that you don't have to prove anything, and that the outcome is not only possible, but inevitable. It is this quiet expectation, more than anything else, that shapes what you attract. When most people think about manifestation, they picture someone actively doing, writing, visualizing, planning, scripting, affirming. There's a certain performance around manifestation culture, a tendency to believe that louder means more effective. But the truth is, what you say matters far less than what you expect. Your expectations create your experience. They form the unconscious blueprint that your reality follows. You may say you want abundance, but if you quietly expect struggle, scarcity will follow. You may declare you're ready for love, but if you quietly expect abandonment, relationships will mirror that wound. The universe listens to your energy, not your words, and energy never lies. Quiet expectation doesn't come from blind positivity. It's not pretending that everything is okay or forcing yourself to ignore doubt. It's the result of deep internal alignment. It arises when your identity has caught up to your desire, when you no longer identify as someone trying to become, but as someone who already is. It's not about shouting, "I am worthy," from the rooftop. It's about calmly embodying that truth in the way you carry yourself, the decisions you make, and the energy you move through life with. This quiet confidence is magnetic. It doesn't beg, it doesn't rush, it doesn't chase, it simply allows. You can't fake quiet expectation. You can't pretend your way into it, because it's not a surface-level trick. It's a deep inner shift. It's a sense of certainty that doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up in how you handle delays, not with panic, but with presence. It's in how you respond to uncertainty, not with control, but with calm. It's in how you hold your vision, not with tension, but with trust. You expect because you've already integrated the belief that you're worthy of receiving, that things are always working for you, even when you can't see it yet. What makes quiet expectation so powerful is that it doesn't stir resistance. It doesn't activate fear. It doesn't send mixed signals. It aligns your internal state with the outcome you want in such a seamless way that there's no energetic friction. You're not asking from a place of lack. You're not reaching from a place of separation. You're receiving from a place of alignment. That's why results come faster when you stop obsessing over them. When you expect calmly, you release timelines, you stop micromanaging, and you trust the intelligence of life to deliver what's meant for you, in the right form and at the right time. To develop quiet expectation, you must begin by paying attention to the subtle conversations happening in your mind. What do you assume will happen when things go quiet? Do you expect disappointment or delight? Do you default to fear or faith? Are your thoughts aligned with the identity of someone who has what they want, or someone still hoping to be chosen? Most of this conditioning lives beneath your conscious awareness, which is why awareness itself is the first step toward shifting it. Begin to observe your internal responses without judgment. Notice where your expectations are anchored. Are they rooted in past experiences or future possibilities? Are they echoing your fears or reflecting your faith? Changing your internal expectations is not about force. It's about recalibration. It's about slowly reconditioning your nervous system to expect safety, success, love, peace, and fulfillment. Not as a fantasy, but as a normal state of being. You do this through repetition, not of empty affirmations, but of aligned thoughts and actions. Every time you show up for yourself with integrity, you reinforce a new belief. Every time you hold your boundaries, honor your needs, and follow your intuition, you communicate to yourself that you are someone who is already enough. Quiet expectation is built in these moments, not in the big declarations, but in the subtle, consistent alignment with your truth. One of the clearest signs that you're stepping into quiet expectation is that you stop feeling the need to prove anything. You stop chasing validation. You stop performing for love, for worthiness, for success. You move with assurance, not arrogance. You don't shrink, but you also don't overextend. You trust your timing. You let people come and go without clinging. You release outcomes without resentment. You know that nothing meant for you can miss you, and nothing that leaves was meant to stay. This kind of trust doesn't come overnight. It's cultivated. It's chosen again and again, especially when fear tries to pull you back into old patterns. When you start to live in quiet expectation, your life begins to soften. You experience more flow. You notice synchronicities. Things feel lighter, more aligned. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped resisting. You start to realize that true manifestation doesn't require a battle cry. It requires energetic clarity. It requires you to live as though what you desire is already on its way, because energetically it is. The delay is never in the universe, it's in the alignment of your belief. Quiet expectation is not silence. It's the loudest frequency in the spiritual realm. It tells the universe, I know who I am. I know what I'm worthy of, and I'm ready to receive it in peace. That readiness is what draws everything in. Not the need, not the push, not the pleading, but the quiet, powerful certainty of someone who knows it's already theirs. Chapter 3. You attract who you are, not what you want. Most people approach life from a place of wanting. They hold their desires out in front of them like distant stars, hoping that if they reach far enough, work hard enough, or visualize vividly enough, they will eventually touch what they crave. They say, I want abundance, or I want love, or I want peace, believing that their wanting alone will summon those things into their reality. But desire by itself does not create. It signals, it begins a process. Yet what ultimately determines what enters your life is not what you want, but who you are while wanting it. Your frequency, your beliefs, your identity, these are the architects of your reality. You don't attract what you wish for, you attract what you embody. This truth can be difficult to accept because it challenges the illusion of control through effort. It forces you to pause and look within. If your external world is not reflecting what you desire, it doesn't mean you are doing something wrong on the surface. It often means that there is a misalignment beneath it. You might be saying all the right things, reading all the right books, even taking all the right actions, but if your self-concept hasn't shifted, if you still see yourself as unworthy, uncertain, or separate from what you want, then your results will mirror that inner state. The identity you carry dictates what feels normal to you, and what feels normal to you is what you unconsciously maintain. This is why people often sabotage their own progress without realizing it. If love begins to enter but you expect abandonment, you may push it away or find ways to prove it's not real. If money starts to flow but you believe deep down that wealth is unstable or unsafe, you may unconsciously create situations where it disappears. Your outer life cannot outgrow your inner identity for long. It may stretch temporarily, but it will always return to the level of your self-belief unless that belief evolves. Wanting without identity work is like planting seeds in dry soil. No matter how pure your intentions or how beautiful your vision, the ground must be ready to receive. This is where many manifestation teachings fall short. They teach people to focus on the object of desire, but rarely emphasize the necessity of becoming the person who naturally receives and holds that desire. Wanting is easy, becoming is transformational. And that transformation is not cosmetic. It requires a change in the way you see yourself, speak to yourself, and carry yourself through the world. This process of becoming does not happen through force. It happens through consistent conscious alignment. You begin by asking, who is the version of me that already lives this reality I desire? How do they think, move, respond, decide? What do they believe about love, about money, about purpose, about worth? And then you begin to act in harmony with that version of you. Not perfectly, but progressively. You don't wait for the result to prove your identity. You choose to embody the identity now and allow the result to catch up. This is how you move from hoping to knowing, from trying to receiving. The most magnetic people in the world are not those who want the most, but those who are most deeply aligned with what they want. They have nothing to prove. They don't chase, they don't over-explain or overcompensate. They live from the inside out. Their external world reflects their inner certainty. They walk into a room and shift its energy, not because they demand attention, but because they carry coherence. Their thoughts, emotions, and actions are aligned. There is no static in their signal, and so they become mirrors for others, reminders of what is possible when you stop performing and start embodying. Identity work is the foundation of all lasting change. It's not just about convincing yourself of something new. It's about letting go of what no longer belongs. You shed outdated beliefs, inherited patterns, emotional debris. You stop clinging to versions of yourself that were formed in survival, and you begin to create a self from intention. This is not about pretending to be someone else. It's about remembering who you were before you were conditioned to doubt. When you live from that place, your expectations shift. You stop settling. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking if you're allowed to receive. You just know. And that knowing is enough. Becoming is uncomfortable at first because it requires you to step into the unknown. You're no longer relying on what's familiar. You're no longer repeating what you've always done. You are choosing a new path, a new posture, a new energy. This discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you are expanding, that you are stepping into a reality where your old identity can no longer lead. Both demands that you release what no longer fits, and in doing so, you make space for the self who matches your desire. You will know you are on the right path not when things appear instantly, but when they begin to feel normal in your imagination. When the idea of abundance no longer excites you, but feels like home. When the vision of love no longer feels distant, but deeply familiar. When your dreams no longer intimidate you, because you see them as inevitable. This shift doesn't happen because your circumstances have changed. It happens because you attract who you are. And when you become the one who quietly expects, effortlessly receives, and peacefully embodies your truth, the world begins to reflect it back to you with clarity and grace. Chapter 4. Detachment is not indifference. To the untrained mind, the idea of detachment sounds cold. It sounds like apathy, like giving up on what you want, like turning away from desire in the name of spiritual superiority. And so, many people resist it. They assume that detachment means lowering their standards, shrinking their dreams, or pretending they don't care when they actually do. But detachment, in its purest form, is none of these things. It is not the absence of desire, but the absence of desperation. It is the release of grasping energy, the kind that pushes away what you want even as you reach for it. To detach is not to stop caring. It is to care from a place of peace rather than panic. Desire is not the problem. In fact, desire is sacred. It's a signal of your aliveness, your creative power, your ability to envision something more. It pulls you forward, expands your reality, and connects you to your potential. The problem arises when desire turns into attachment. When your sense of self, your sense of safety, your sense of worth becomes tangled in whether or not that desire manifests. Suddenly, it's not just about what you want. It's about needing it to happen, to feel whole, to feel enough, to feel secure. That is not creation. That is fear in disguise, and fear is the frequency that disrupts your alignment. Attachment carries a heaviness that the universe can feel. It's rooted in lack, in the belief that what you want is separate from you, and that without it something is missing. This energy creates pressure. It clouds your intuition, shortens your patience, and keeps you in a state of hypervigilance, always scanning for signs that things are working or falling apart. It makes you reactive, unstable, and emotionally entangled with outcomes you cannot fully control. And the more you grip, the more you push away. The universe doesn't respond well to force. It responds to clarity, trust, and alignment. Detachment is the release of that force. It is the decision to let your desire breathe, to hold your vision without strangling it, to show up in your life with presence, even as you walk toward something more. It means allowing the possibility of your desire becoming real without demanding it. It means trusting that your worth does not rise and fall with your results. It means staying rooted in your identity even when the outcome is still unseen. This level of emotional freedom is not passive. It is powerful. It signals that you are no longer at the mercy of your desires, but rather in partnership with them. When you detach, you don't stop dreaming. You simply stop suffering over what has not yet arrived. You don't abandon your vision. You just stop trying to force it into existence on your timeline, through your logic, under your conditions. You recognize that your role is not to chase, beg, or control. Your role is to align, embody, and allow. Detachment opens the door for divine timing, for effortless flow. It says, "I am open to this or something better," and actually means it, not as a consolation prize, but as a reflection of true trust. This trust becomes the foundation for emotional neutrality, which is the state in which manifestation becomes smooth and natural. In neutrality, you are no longer swinging between high hopes and deep doubts. You are not making every delay mean something dramatic. You are not interpreting silence as rejection. You are simply holding your inner alignment regardless of what your external circumstances are doing. You are stable. You are centered. You are at peace with the unfolding, even when it's not moving on your schedule. This doesn't mean you lose passion. It means your passion is purified. It's no longer driven by fear, urgency, or a need to prove yourself. It's steady, it's grounded, it's free from emotional volatility. Detachment allows you to act from inspiration, not panic. It allows you to respond rather than react. It allows you to enjoy the journey instead of constantly measuring your progress. And in this state of relaxed certainty, the things you want begin to find you, not because you no longer care, but because you finally let go of the resistance that was repelling them. There's a reason why things often show up the moment you stop obsessing over them. It's not a trick or coincidence, it's a shift in energy. When you release the emotional tension around a desire, you create a space of allowance. That space is magnetic. It draws in experiences that match your calm confidence, not your anxious hoping. The irony is that when you stop needing something so badly, you become the version of yourself who can finally receive it with grace. You are no longer vibrating from absence, but from wholeness, and wholeness attracts wholeness. It's important to understand that detachment doesn't look the same for everyone. For some, it means stepping back from overthinking. For others, it means releasing timelines or expectations around how a goal should manifest. For many, it means releasing the emotional weight they've attached to the outcome. What matters most is the shift from fear to faith, from control to openness, from urgency to presence. These internal changes may be invisible, but they are transformative. They are the difference between chasing and receiving. The practice of detachment is not a one-time event, it's a daily choice. It's a conscious decision to show up with openness, to take aligned action without obsession, to surrender what you cannot control while deeply honoring what you can. It's an act of maturity, of emotional mastery, of spiritual trust. And the more you live in this state, the more life begins to meet you there. Not with resistance, but with flow. Not with struggle, but with synchronicity. You stop trying to force doors open and begin to notice how naturally they unlock when you're no longer pushing. Detachment is not indifference. It is the highest form of care. It is the care that comes from knowing you are already whole, already worthy, already enough, and that what is meant for you can never be withheld, only delayed until your energy matches its arrival. And when that match is made not through effort but through alignment, what you once chased quietly finds its way to you. Chapter 5. The Ego's Grip on Outcomes. There is a part of you that wants control. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It doesn't want to wait, surrender, or trust in anything it cannot see. This part of you is the ego, and while it's not the enemy, it often becomes the loudest voice in your mind when you begin to move toward something bigger. The ego wants to keep you safe, but its definition of safety is rooted in the familiar, even when the familiar is limiting. So when you set an intention to manifest something new, something that stretches your identity, expands your possibilities, or challenges your past beliefs, the ego often tightens its grip. It demands to know exactly how things will unfold. It obsesses over timelines. It panics over delays. It fixates on outcomes. And in doing so, it creates resistance that blocks the very things you're trying to attract. The ego doesn't understand energetic alignment. It doesn't understand divine timing or quantum leaps. It only knows the physical world, the world of effort and logic and linear progression. So when you begin to align with an unseen reality, when you trust that something is coming even before it arrives, your ego interprets that as risky, even dangerous. It starts to doubt, question, overanalyze. It tells you to do more, fix more, control more. It treats every pause as a problem and every delay as a threat. And if you're not aware, you will follow its lead. You will shift from aligned action to fear-based effort. You will stop trusting and start forcing. And that shift, while subtle, can alter everything. The ego loves outcomes because they give it a sense of power. When you get the job, the partner, the money, the opportunity, the ego feels validated. It says, "See, I did that. I made it happen." But when things don't go according to plan, the ego panics. It feels like a failure. It spirals into stories of inadequacy and loss. It starts to believe that you've lost control, that something has gone wrong, but nothing has gone wrong. You are simply being called to trust something beyond your ego's reach. You are being asked to surrender the illusion of control and step into a deeper partnership with life. And that is something the ego resists because it requires humility. Letting go of the ego's grip doesn't mean you stop caring about outcomes. It means you stop letting them define your worth. You stop needing them to prove something about who you are. You begin to see them as reflections of alignment rather than rewards for effort. This shift is everything. It moves you from a conditional sense of self, "I am enough when I succeed," to an unconditional one, "I am enough always," and success flows from that truth. When your sense of self is no longer tied to external validation, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of manifesting. You no longer react with panic to what hasn't arrived, because your peace is no longer held hostage by outcomes. This doesn't mean you become passive or detached from your goals. It means you approach them from a place of steadiness. You still take action. You still move toward your vision, but you do so with presence rather than pressure. You listen more deeply to your intuition. You allow space for synchronicity. You stop trying to control every detail and start trusting the larger intelligence that is guiding your path. This is not weakness, it is power in its purest form, the power that comes from alignment, not anxiety. The ego is loud, but it is not wise. It often confuses busyness with productivity, control with safety, intensity with power. But true power is quiet. It's the calm knowing that what is meant for you is already yours in the energetic realm, and that your only job is to align with it, not chase it. The more you identify with your ego's voice, the more you feel the need to prove, perform, and protect. The more you return to your center, the more you remember that nothing outside of you defines your truth. This remembrance is what allows you to move through the world with grace, not grasping. There will be moments when the ego flares up, when things don't happen on your timeline, when others seem to move faster, when doubt creeps in and whispers that you're behind. In these moments, it's important not to judge yourself, but to notice, to witness the ego's panic without becoming it, to take a breath, soften your body, and return to the present. You don't need to fix anything in that moment. You just need to remember who you are. That remembrance is the loosening of the grip. It is the space through which clarity returns. The more you release the ego's need to control outcomes, the more freedom you feel, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop resisting what is. You stop fighting the flow. You stop measuring your worth by external markers and begin to cultivate a steady, unshakable trust in your path. That trust doesn't make you complacent, it makes you powerful, because now your energy is clean, your actions are aligned, your presence is magnetic, and that is the state in which manifestations arrive, not when the ego is satisfied, but when the soul is at peace. Chapter 6. Energetic Availability and Space-Making. Every manifestation begins not with a wish, but with a signal. You send that signal into the field of possibility through your energy, your intention, and the emotional state you hold most often. The universe, operating through resonance and frequency, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are energetically available for. You can have the most vivid vision board, the clearest journal entries, the strongest will, but if you haven't made space in your energy field, your habits, your beliefs, and your environment for what you desire to land, it cannot find a place to settle. This is not a punishment or delay from the universe, it is a reflection of readiness. Energetic availability is about more than having a desire. It's about being a true match for the experience of receiving that desire. That means your nervous system must be able to hold it without self-sabotage. Your mind must be able to believe in it without chronic doubt. Your daily life must have space to support it without chaos. Often what blocks our manifestations is not a lack of deserving or effort, but a lack of internal and external room for them to exist. You want love, but your heart is still carrying resentment. You want abundance, but your energy is spent managing stress and lack. You want clarity, but your environment is cluttered with distraction. In truth, manifestation begins with making space. Making space is not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like walking away from relationships that feel familiar but no longer align with your becoming. Sometimes it means organizing your home, clearing out emotional residue, or saying no to things you used to tolerate. It can also mean becoming more mindful of your thoughts and conversations, protecting your attention, and releasing anything that leaves you feeling smaller or more scattered. Space is not just physical, it's mental, emotional, spiritual. And the more space you make, the more life has room to surprise you. This is why letting go is such a critical part of manifestation, even though it's often the most resisted. Letting go feels like loss to the ego, but to the soul it is expansion. You are not making yourself smaller. You are releasing what was never meant to come with you into your next chapter. That can be uncomfortable, especially if you've built an identity around what you're letting go of. But every version of you that holds on too tightly to what no longer serves is delaying the arrival of what's trying to reach you. Life moves when you do. Energy flows where space is available. Energetic availability also requires alignment with your boundaries. What you tolerate sets the tone for what you attract. If you continue to entertain energies, situations, or behaviors that drain you, then you are sending a message, intentionally or not, that you're willing to hold space for that reality. Every time you reinforce a boundary, say no to misalignment, or choose rest over obligation, you're telling the universe that you are ready for more. You are proving, through your choices, that you are available for what nourishes rather than depletes. That kind of clarity is magnetic. This is where the deeper work of identity comes in. You must not only want something new, you must believe you are someone who lives in that newness with ease. If you are still carrying subconscious beliefs that tell you love is dangerous, success is exhausting, or joy is fleeting, then those beliefs create static in your signal. You may be sending a mixed message. Desire on the surface, fear beneath it, and until that static is cleared, the desire cannot anchor. Clearing it requires honesty. It requires slowing down, listening to your body, noticing where you contract or resist when you speak your desires out loud. That contraction is valuable information. It shows you where to soften, where to release, where to do the work. You may not always know what specifically needs to be cleared, and that's okay. Space making doesn't always come with perfect clarity. Sometimes you just begin by simplifying. You remove the noise. You create stillness. You stop filling every moment with distraction. In that space, insights begin to surface. You hear your intuition more clearly. You begin to feel the difference between aligned yeses and habitual maybes. You start to understand what your energy has been holding on to and where it's time to loosen the grip. One of the most radical acts of abundance is to say no before the yes has arrived, to release the almosts, the not quite rights, the things that feel like settling. This tells the universe that you are not desperate, that you trust in what's coming, and that you are making space not from emptiness but from expectancy. It's easy to hold on to what's familiar out of fear that nothing better will come, but when you stay full of the wrong things, you have no room to receive the right ones. Space is not emptiness. Space is potential, and the more of it you allow, the more clearly your desires can enter and be recognized. Energetic availability is not about being perfect. It is about being present. It's about becoming someone who is fully alive in this moment, not waiting for the manifestation to make you whole. It's about living in such a way that if your desire arrived tomorrow, it would feel like a seamless next step, not a jarring disruption. You make space not because you're lacking, but because you are expanding, not because you are empty, but because you are open. Chapter 7. Expectation, the subtle language of belief. Expectation is one of the most underestimated forces in manifestation. It operates quietly, often beneath the surface of our conscious awareness, yet it communicates more powerfully with the universe than words ever could. Where desire is the spark, Expectation is the current. It carries your intention forward, acting as the bridge between your internal identity and the external reality you are shaping. While desire says, "I want," expectation whispers, "I know." And that difference is everything. People often assume that expectation is a conscious statement, something you declare to yourself in moments of optimism. But true expectation is much deeper than a sentence you repeat. It's a vibration, a quiet certainty you hold even when circumstances seem to contradict it. It doesn't need to be proven or justified because it is felt, not forced. You may speak affirmations all day long, but if your energy is still wrapped in doubt, fear, or urgency, what you are actually expecting is not alignment, but resistance. The universe does not respond to your performance. It responds to your emotional baseline. That baseline is what reveals your real expectations. Think of your life right now. The patterns you see, the experiences you attract, the way people treat you, these are not random. They are reflections of your inner expectations. If you unconsciously expect rejection, you will interpret even neutral interactions as threats. If you expect delays, you will see confirmation of waiting everywhere you look. If you expect to struggle, ease will feel suspicious and hard to accept. These expectations shape the filter through which you view the world, and in doing so, they reinforce themselves. Your life begins to echo the beliefs you hold quietly, not the ones you declare loudly. This is why the work of shifting your expectation is not about repeating new phrases. It's about transforming your relationship with yourself and with life. It's about healing the parts of you that expect to be disappointed, abandoned, or unseen. Those expectations often formed early, not as choices but as responses to pain, unpredictability, or betrayal. They became emotional habits, and habits, once ingrained, don't break through logic. They shift through experience, through consistent realignment, through being willing to feel something new. To expect something different, you must teach your body and your mind that a new reality is not only possible but safe. This happens through small, repeated decisions. Choosing to believe in your worth, even when old voices tell you otherwise. Choosing to stay open to love, even when fear tries to close you off. Choosing to believe in support, even when you've been used to doing it all alone. These choices may feel small in the moment, but they begin to create a new emotional home, a place where your expectation is no longer survival-based, but abundance-based. You begin to expect good things, not because you're naive, but because you've shifted your center of gravity from fear to faith. Expectation also shows up in how you prepare. If you expect something to go wrong, you brace for impact. You live in a state of readiness for disappointment. Your body is tense, your mind is guarded, your spirit is cautious. This tension creates friction in your field, making it harder for ease, flow, and surprise to reach you. But when you truly expect good, your actions reflect that belief. You make space, you soften, you allow. You show up to life with a sense of openness, not defensiveness. This doesn't mean you're foolish or unprepared. It means you've decided to trust your capacity to navigate whatever comes, not by shrinking, but by expanding. Many people confuse expectation with entitlement. They fear that expecting something good means they are being arrogant or demanding. But true expectation is not arrogant. It is humble. It is rooted in trust, not in superiority. It does not say, "I deserve more than others." It says, "I am aligned with my truth and I trust that the universe responds to that." Entitlement demands from a place of ego. Expectation receives from a place of inner knowing. The difference lies in your emotional frequency, in whether you are grasping or allowing. You don't need to fake belief to shift your expectations. You need to cultivate environments internally and externally that support the identity you are choosing. This means surrounding yourself with thoughts, habits, and people who reflect the energy you are growing into. It means practicing self-talk that is honest but also kind, firm but forgiving. It means noticing when old expectations creep back in and choosing again and again to come home to alignment. This practice is not a one-time reset. It's a way of living, a way of relating to life with grace and power. Eventually, your new expectations begin to feel natural. What once felt like a stretch now feels like your baseline. You no longer need to hype yourself up or talk yourself into hope. You simply know. You know that what you seek is seeking you. You know that the right connections, the right timing, the right breakthroughs are already in motion. You may not see all the pieces yet, but you no longer panic in the You hold the vision with calm certainty, because your energy is no longer chasing, it is receiving. Expectation, when cultivated with care, becomes the silent architect of your reality. It shapes the tone of your days, the rhythm of your emotions, the clarity of your choices. It is the frequency of faith that holds steady even when doubt knocks. It is the invisible thread that connects the unseen to the seen. And the more you learn to live in that quiet certainty, the more effortlessly life meets you there. Chapter 8. Letting Go Without Giving Up. One of the greatest misunderstandings in the world of personal growth and manifestation is the idea that letting go means giving up. For many, these concepts blur together, as if surrendering a desire signals weakness or signals to the universe that you no longer care. But there is a powerful distinction between the two, and understanding it is essential to creating a life of alignment, ease, and true magnetic energy. Letting go is not about abandoning your dreams. It is about releasing the emotional grip you have on how they must come to life. It is not about walking away from your vision, but about stepping out of the way so the vision can breathe. To give up is to detach from hope. It is rooted in resignation, a subtle belief that something is no longer possible, no longer worth the effort, no longer in reach. It is often driven by exhaustion, fear, or the sting of repeated disappointment. Giving up closes the door. It shrinks your capacity to receive. Letting go, however, is an act of trust. It is rooted in maturity. It comes not from wariness, but from wisdom. You still want what you want. You still move toward it. But you no longer demand it show up on your terms, within your timeline, through your chosen methods. You stop trying to force life to obey your plan. You begin to understand that life often delivers what you want in ways you didn't expect, and on timelines that serve your highest good, not your temporary impatience. Letting go is not a passive decision. It is an active recalibration of your energy. It requires you to shift from control to co-creation, from obsession to openness. And that shift is not always comfortable, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that control equals safety. For those who have lived in survival mode, letting go can feel like losing power. But in truth, it is the opposite. You gain power when you release the need to control what you were never meant to carry alone. You free up energy that was tangled in micromanaging, overthinking, and doubting. You make room for inspired action, intuitive guidance, and divine orchestration. There is a kind of sacred power that enters your life when you stop needing everything to happen right now. When you let go of timelines, you allow the process to unfold organically. You learn to recognize the wisdom in delay. You stop interpreting the wait as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. Sometimes what you want is ready for you, but you are still growing into the version of yourself who can hold it. Sometimes you're ready, but the people, places, or opportunities involved are still aligning. Letting go doesn't mean stepping back from the dream. It means stepping into patience with grace. It means trusting that the path is being cleared, even when your eyes can't yet see the road. You do not have to let go of wanting. Desire is part of your human experience. It is natural, beautiful, and powerful. But desire becomes distorted when it turns into emotional dependency. When you believe your happiness, peace, or wholeness is conditional on a specific outcome, you trap yourself in a cycle of waiting. You postpone joy. You withhold worth. You place your power outside of yourself and hand it to an unknown future. Letting go is how you reclaim that power. It is how you say, I trust in the arrival of what I seek, and I also trust that I don't have to suffer in its absence. That is emotional freedom. That is true magnetism. To let go without giving up means to move forward without resistance. It means continuing to show up for your vision, but doing so with open hands. It means holding the dream in your heart while releasing the weight of expectation from your shoulders. It means living your life fully now, instead of waiting for a milestone to give you permission to feel alive. And ironically, it is this state of wholeness, this energy of non-neediness that accelerates the arrival of what you once chased. Life responds to peace. It moves toward people who are available, not desperate, aligned, not forceful. This doesn't mean you won't have moments of doubt. Letting go is a practice, not a single event. There will be days when fear creeps in, when impatience whispers that it's taking too long, when old patterns tempt you to grasp again. That is normal. But each time you notice yourself tightening, you can pause, breathe, and return to presence. You can remind yourself that the energy of holding on too tightly only slows things down. You can release again, not because you're giving up, but because you're choosing to trust. Over time, this practice becomes a new baseline. You start to feel more grounded in your body, more clear in your mind, more open in your heart. When you let go without giving up, you become a clear signal. You become a space through which your desires can flow easily. You no longer block your blessings with doubt or smother them with fear. You stop needing proof before you believe. You stop asking when and start trusting that it's already on the way. That kind of certainty, the kind that doesn't shout but simply knows, is the most magnetic frequency you can hold. You are not meant to live in constant striving. You are not meant to exhaust yourself in pursuit of what's meant for you. Life is not a test you have to pass or a race you have to win. It is a co-creative experience, and your role is not to do all the work, but to do your part with presence, purpose, and peace. Letting go without giving up is how you honor your role. It is how you release control while maintaining clarity. It is how you surrender the outcome while embodying the energy of already having. And it is how you begin to move through life as someone who no longer begs for what they want, but simply receives. Chapter 9. Emotional Discipline and Energetic Hygiene. Manifestation is not just about aligning with what you want. It's about maintaining that alignment. This is where emotional discipline and energetic hygiene become essential. While these terms may sound clinical or abstract, they represent the grounded practices of inner clarity, emotional maturity, and intentional energy management. Without these practices, even the most powerful desires can be clouded by inconsistent energy, reactive emotions, and unconscious habits that undermine the very things you're trying to attract. The truth is, you cannot hold the frequency of what you want if you're constantly being pulled into emotional chaos. You may be clear in your vision, but if you're not steady in your energy, your signal is inconsistent, and manifestation becomes a stop-start process. Emotional discipline is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending to be positive all the time. It is about becoming aware of your emotional responses and choosing not to let them run your life. It's the practice of responding instead of reacting. When a delay happens, when someone disappoints you, when fear or doubt arises, emotional discipline is what allows you to stay centered rather than spiral. It doesn't mean you ignore what you feel. It means you acknowledge it without letting it derail your alignment. You become someone who observes their emotional landscape with curiosity instead of judgment. This creates space, and in that space, you can choose your next thought, your next action, your next energy with clarity. Most people live in a state of emotional reactivity, bouncing between highs and lows based on their external circumstances. This constant fluctuation makes it hard to maintain the inner consistency needed for manifestation. If your emotional state is always dictated by what's happening around you, you're handing over your power. You're allowing temporary conditions to set your frequency, which sends mixed signals to the universe. One day you're hopeful, the next you're discouraged. One day you believe, the next you doubt. This wobble is not a moral failing, it's human. But to live in alignment, you must train your nervous system to hold a new baseline. You must practice emotional steadiness not just when things go well, but especially when they don't. Energetic hygiene works hand in hand with emotional discipline. While the latter focuses on your inner responses, energetic hygiene is about what you expose yourself to and how you protect your personal energy field. Your environment, your conversations, your digital consumption, your habits, all of these impact your frequency. If you're constantly absorbing the chaos, drama, or fear of others, it becomes harder to hold your own alignment. Energy is contagious, and if you're not mindful of what you're taking in, you may start to carry emotional burdens that aren't even yours. This is why it's vital to regularly check in with yourself. Are you overwhelmed because of your own situation, or are you carrying the weight of someone else's emotions, opinions, or projection? Good energetic hygiene means creating boundaries, not from separation, but from sovereignty. You don't have to engage in every argument, absorb every headline, or participate in every conversation. You can love people and still choose peace over performance. You can stay informed without drowning in negativity. You can be present without being pulled. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. When your energy is clean, you become a safe place for your desires to land. You become grounded, magnetic, and trustworthy, not just to others, but to yourself. It also means choosing rest, solitude, and silence as sacred practices. We live in a world that glorifies stimulation and noise, but your alignment often speaks in whispers. If you're always rushing, always scrolling, always filling space, you may miss the inner cues that tell you what's truly aligned. Energetic hygiene requires you to slow down enough to notice when you're off balance, when you're chasing instead of attracting, when you're saying yes out of guilt or fear rather than genuine desire. It's in these quiet moments that you can recalibrate, you can return to presence, You can clear the static and reset your field. Emotional discipline and energetic hygiene are not about becoming rigid or detached. They are about becoming sovereign, about realizing that you are responsible for the frequency you carry, and that frequency shapes your life more than any external factor ever could. When you prioritize your inner steadiness, you create a foundation that doesn't crumble when results are delayed. You become someone who holds the energy of their desires even in the absence of evidence. That kind of consistency is what turns potential into reality. This is not about perfection. You will have bad days. You will have moments of doubt, frustration, sadness. That is not weakness. It's being alive. The work is not to eliminate these emotions, but to hold them with grace, to feel them fully without collapsing into them, to return again and again to your center, to remember that you are the source of your energy, not the victim of it. That memory, that return, is the muscle that emotional discipline builds. It is the daily choice to stay aligned with your truth, regardless of how the world moves around you. When you begin to live from this place of emotional clarity and energetic cleanliness, you stop leaking energy, you stop wasting time on misalignment. You start attracting more effortlessly, not because life becomes easier, but because you've become more aligned. You don't need to manipulate outcomes. You don't need to chase validation. You simply become a stable, receptive presence, and that presence is the foundation on which all lasting manifestations are built. Chapter 10. Receiving Mode. Becoming a Clear Vessel. Manifestation is not about constantly sending signals into the universe. It's just as much, if not more, about becoming available to receive. This is where many people unintentionally block what they've been asking for. They are so focused on asking, planning, affirming, visualizing, and trying to align that they forget to open themselves to the experience of actual receiving. They are prepared to work for it, think about it, even wait for it, but not to fully receive it when it arrives. And receiving is not a passive state. It is an active openness, a readiness of the body, mind, and spirit to accept what you once imagined into your actual lived experience. Being in receiving mode means you've done the inner alignment and now trust the flow of life enough to allow it to come to you in the way it chooses. It means you've released the attachment to how or when and opened a clear space for the outcome to enter without resistance. Most people think they're ready to receive because they want something deeply. But wanting is not the same as being ready. Wanting can exist alongside resistance, doubt, or self-sabotage. True readiness means you have made peace with both the possibility of it arriving and the timeline on which it does. Receiving often feels more vulnerable than asking. Asking is safe because the desire still lives in the realm of imagination. You can shape it, hold it, and control its meaning. But receiving means stepping into a new reality that may challenge your identity, your comfort, and your self-perception. It might mean showing up more boldly, letting yourself be seen more clearly, or allowing more intimacy, visibility. Many people unconsciously resist receiving because part of them feels unsafe in having. They fear that once they have what they want, they will lose it, or that they'll be exposed, or that they'll no longer have the protection of longing. Longing can feel familiar and strangely safe. Having requires a shift in identity. It asks you to live from a new standard of energy. To truly receive, you must believe that you are worthy of ease, worthy of joy, worthy of the thing you once thought was beyond you. And you must be willing to soften the parts of you that were trained to expect the opposite. Many people carry subconscious programs that tell them they have to struggle to earn, that they must prove their worth to deserve, or that having too much will make others uncomfortable. These programs can silently block what you're calling in, even as your words say otherwise. Receiving is not just about receiving the thing. It's about receiving the self who is aligned with having it. This is why the journey toward a manifestation often brings up old wounds. The thing you want is not testing you. It's revealing to you where you still believe you must be small, cautious, or in control to be safe. Becoming a clear vessel means you are no longer operating from the cluttered emotional field of fear, guilt, or unworthiness. You've cleared enough inner space to welcome what you asked for. You're not filling every moment with worry or noise. You're not drowning your intuition with over-analysis. You're not gripping so tightly to the outcome that you block the flow of life. Instead, you are open, soft, present. This is the paradox of receiving. It doesn't happen through force. It happens through surrender. You don't get what you want by grabbing at it. You get it by aligning with the version of yourself who knows it's already hers. This is where embodiment becomes key. You must begin to live now as someone who receives easily, not as someone who's desperate to get, but as someone who walks in faith, who leaves space in their schedule, in their heart, and in their thoughts for the things they've called in. That means not overbooking yourself with distractions just to avoid the discomfort of the unknown. It means not trying to fix every perceived gap with action. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay still and available. It's in that stillness that you notice the subtle shifts, the nudges, the opportunities that you'd miss if you were too busy proving your worth. You also train yourself to receive by actually receiving. That means receiving compliments without deflecting them, receiving support without guilt, receiving joy without assuming it's temporary. These small daily moments are practice. They signal to your subconscious that it's safe to have, that it's safe to be full, that it's safe to expand. The more you allow yourself to receive in ordinary moments, the more you normalize the energy of abundance and fulfillment. Then, when the bigger manifestations arrive, they no longer feel foreign or overwhelming. They feel like the natural next step. Receiving mode is not about perfection. You will still have doubts. You will still face moments where you want to grip again. But as you build this internal trust, you'll be able to return to center more quickly. You'll notice when you start to contract and breathe your way back into openness. You'll stop making the delay mean something about your worth, and instead hold the space with grace. That is the essence of receiving, being able to sit in the silence between desire and arrival without collapsing into fear. You don't have to do more. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to beg. Your work is to get clear, stay open, and allow. Trust that what you asked for is already finding its way to you. Trust that your only job now is to hold the space, to keep your field clear, to become the version of yourself who welcomes it with peace and presence. The more you learn to receive with grace, the more life mirrors that grace back to you. Chapter 11. Magnetism over effort. There is a certain kind of effort that exhausts the soul. It is the effort rooted in fear, driven by scarcity, and laced with the frantic belief that if you don't constantly push, force, or hustle, nothing good will happen. This kind of effort is glorified in our culture. It wears the mask of ambition but often hides deep feelings of unworthiness and anxiety. It says, if I don't prove myself constantly, I won't be chosen. If I don't control every step, I'll fall behind. And while effort itself is not inherently bad, action is necessary in the physical world. The frequency from which you act makes all the difference. There is a profound distinction between aligned action and fear-based effort. One creates flow, the other creates friction. Magnetism, on the other hand, does not come from how much you do. It comes from who you are while doing it. It is a quality of presence, of embodied belief, of energetic clarity that pulls things toward you with a quiet power. Magnetic people are not always the loudest or the busiest. They are not chasing. They are not proving. They are grounded in their worth and aligned with what they want. Their energy speaks before their words do. And in a world that is constantly trying to do more and be more, that kind of stillness and certainty is irresistible. It stands out not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. The misconception is that manifestation happens because of relentless work, that if you aren't moving, grinding, and striving, nothing is shifting. But true manifestation happens when your energy is clean and your alignment is steady, when you are no longer moving out of lack but from fullness. That doesn't mean you sit and do nothing. It means your doing comes from a clear place. You don't act to fill a void, you act to express your truth. You don't chase results, you follow intuition. That kind of action is light, efficient, and often surprisingly effective. It's not rushed. It's inspired. When you shift from effort to magnetism, you start to notice that things come to you more easily, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've stopped resisting. You've stopped tying your worth to the outcome. You've stopped forcing what isn't flowing. You've stopped acting from the belief that it all depends on you. Magnetism is about trusting that when you are aligned, life meets you halfway. It's about becoming so deeply anchored in who you are and what you expect that you become a natural attractor of everything that matches that frequency. This shift requires courage. It means unlearning the belief that more always means better. It means facing the discomfort of stillness. It means allowing space, which often feels vulnerable if you're used to filling every gap with movement. But it's in the space that you receive. It's in the stillness that your intuition speaks. It's in the calm that your magnetic signal becomes the clearest. When your energy is scattered, frantic, or full of noise, your desires get lost in the static. When your energy is coherent, your signal becomes strong, focused, and undeniable. Magnetism is also about coherence between your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. If you think abundance but feel fear and act from desperation, your frequency is not aligned. But when you think with belief, feel with trust, and act with calm confidence, you become a match for the reality you want. This alignment doesn't happen by accident. It is cultivated. It's the result of choosing presence over panic, trust over control, and authenticity over performance. Every time you move in integrity with what you desire, even if no one sees it, you are strengthening your magnetism. There will always be moments when action is needed, but the key is to act from the right energy. Aligned action feels clear, decisive, and often joyful. Even when it's challenging, it doesn't drain you in the same way forced effort does. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your peace, your values, or your well-being. It arises from inner clarity, not outer pressure. And it creates momentum without burnout. This is the sweet spot where magic unfolds, not because you've done everything perfectly, but because you've chosen to honor your energy above all else. Magnetism also means being able to hold the vision without collapsing into fear when things take time. It means trusting that your field is working for you even when you can't yet see the proof. It means remembering that the unseen is not inactive, that the gap between asking and receiving is not a void, but a sacred space where your energy is calibrating. Holding that space with grace is a deeply magnetic act. It tells the universe, I trust, I'm ready, I know it's done. That kind of inner stillness sends a signal louder than any words could. To live in magnetism is to stop trying to earn what is already yours. It is to stop performing for outcomes and start aligning with your truth. It is to trust that your worth is not up for negotiation, and that your presence, when fully inhabited, is more than enough to call in the life you desire. You don't need to hustle for your worthiness. You don't need to chase what's meant to find you. You just need to become the version of yourself who receives with ease, who acts with clarity, and who rests in the knowing that when you are aligned, effort becomes elegant and results inevitable. Chapter 12. The Illusion of Control. There is a powerful seduction in the idea of control. It offers the illusion of safety, the sense that if you can predict and manage every detail of your life, nothing unexpected will happen. It whispers to the mind that control equals stability, that outcomes can be guaranteed if you just try hard enough, think far enough ahead, or underneath its surface lies fear, the fear of chaos, of loss, of vulnerability, of disappointment. And while it's natural to want to protect yourself from those things, the truth is, the tighter you grip, the more you restrict the flow of what's meant for you. Control doesn't create clarity. It creates friction. It makes you reactive, rigid, and emotionally fragile. When you believe that everything must unfold according to your personal timeline, in the way you've envisioned, you limit the universe's ability to surprise you. You reject other possibilities that may actually serve your growth more deeply. The path you think is best is often shaped by what feels safe or familiar, not what is truly aligned. And when you demand that life bend to your limited understanding of how things should unfold, you step out of alignment and into resistance. Many people confuse control with responsibility. But being responsible for your energy, your boundaries, and your actions is not the same as trying to control outcomes. Responsibility is grounded, it's intentional, it's rooted in awareness and presence. Control, on the other hand, is anxious, it's compulsive, it's driven by a need to prevent discomfort, often by avoiding surrender. But no amount of control can shield you from life's unpredictability. The more you try to force everything into place, the more you exhaust yourself and miss the gentle, organic unfolding of your path. Surrender is not a passive act. It doesn't mean giving up or becoming apathetic. It means trusting that life is intelligent, that your desires are already known, and that the timing, form, and route of their delivery may look different than your plan. It means loosening your grip so you can actually receive. You cannot receive with clenched fists. You cannot hear guidance when your mind is racing with contingency plans. You cannot align with peace while you're battling the fear that if you stop pushing, everything will fall apart. True surrender is the recognition that control is not the source of safety. Alignment is. The illusion of control often stems from a past wound. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that being in control was the only way to feel safe or seen. Maybe life felt unstable, and control became a coping mechanism. Maybe you experienced betrayal, and control became your way of protecting your heart. These patterns are understandable. They were adaptive in the past. but they cannot take you where you want to go next. Manifestation in its purest form is a dance with the unknown. It requires openness. It requires vulnerability. It requires trust in something beyond your ego's plans. Letting go of control is not easy. It brings up discomfort. It challenges the part of you that still believes safety comes from micromanagement. But in time, you start to see that when you release control, what you gain is far more valuable. Clarity, flow, creativity, peace. You begin to notice how much energy you were wasting on trying to orchestrate every detail. You realize that the universe moves more gracefully than your plans ever could. You learn to follow signs, to listen to inner nudges, to respond to what feels true rather than react to what feels urgent. And in that space, you start to co-create rather than control. There is great humility in surrender. It requires you to acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. You don't need to. Your job is not to map out every turn, but to stay aligned with your truth and take the next inspired step. You allow space for divine intelligence to do what it does best: surprise you, support you, evolve you. You shift from being the one who demands to being the one who trusts. And this trust is not naive. It is powerful. It is born of experience. It is what allows you to live from a place of peace, even when the path is unclear. The irony is that when you finally release control, life often starts to flow in ways you could not have predicted but always desired. Opportunities appear. Relationships improve, creative solutions arise. This doesn't happen because you stopped caring. It happens because you stopped interfering. You stepped out of your own way. You made space for grace. You allowed the energy that creates worlds to move through your life unobstructed by your fear of what could go wrong. This chapter of your evolution is not about holding it all together. It's about softening into trust. It's about remembering that real power doesn't come from control. It comes from clarity. And clarity arises when your mind is quiet enough to listen, your heart is open enough to feel, and your energy is grounded enough to move with life rather than against it. Control may feel safe, but it's a cage. Surrender may feel risky, but it's the beginning of true freedom. And it's in that freedom that your most aligned, abundant, and authentic life begins to unfold. Chapter 13. Silence speaks. Manifestation in stillness. In a world addicted to noise, silence is often misunderstood. It is mistaken for emptiness, for passivity, even for weakness. But silence holds a power that few recognize because few allow themselves to sit in it long enough to understand what it truly offers. We have been conditioned to believe that doing more, speaking more, asserting more, and proving more are the ways to move forward. In this constant state of outward energy, we are so busy producing noise that we drown out the very guidance we claim to be seeking. Yet it is in silence that the most important shifts take place. Manifestation is not born of volume. It is born of vibration, and vibration is most coherent in stillness. Stillness is not stagnation. It is not the absence of movement, but the presence of alignment. It is the place where your inner world finds equilibrium, where your mind quiets enough to hear what your intuition has been trying to say, where your heart softens enough to receive what your grasping hands could never catch. Most people associate manifestation with action. And yes, action has its place, but aligned action arises from clarity, and clarity is found in the quiet, not in the chaos. If you cannot sit with yourself in silence, you are unlikely to receive clear signals about your path. You may act out of fear, impatience, or the need to escape discomfort. These actions rarely lead you to what you truly desire. They take you in circles, mimicking progress but avoiding depth. The silence that creates transformation is not just external, it is internal. It is the ability to pause the reactive loops in your mind, to stop rehearsing what went wrong, to stop catastrophizing what might go wrong, and to simply be present with what is. When you become still, you begin to feel your true frequency, not the one you perform, but the one you live in. And this awareness is everything. If you don't know the quality of your current energy, how can you shift it? If you don't know the stories you're carrying beneath your words, how can you change the narrative? Silence reveals what you've been too busy to notice. Many people are afraid of silence because it strips away the distractions that protect them from their unresolved fears. In silence, old wounds rise, doubt speaks, insecurity becomes loud. But this is not a punishment. It is a gift. What rises in silence was always there. Now you have the chance to meet it, to feel it, to heal it. You learn that your discomfort is not dangerous, only unfamiliar, and as you move through it, rather than away from it, you become more rooted, more whole, more magnetically aligned. You stop projecting noise into the world from your unhealed places. You begin to emit a frequency that is clean, calm, and clear. The most magnetic people often speak the least. They don't need to convince or explain or defend. Their energy speaks for them. Their presence communicates a message before their words are formed. This is not because they are passive or indifferent, but because they are anchored. They have learned that their power does not lie in how much they say, but in how deeply they listen, to themselves, to life, to the subtle nudges that guide their next step. When you are at peace with silence, you are at peace with yourself. And when you are at peace with yourself, you stop chasing things to fill the void. You become the source. You become the attraction point. You draw in experiences that match your inner stillness. Manifestation in stillness means being able to hold the energy of what you want without shouting for it. It means trusting that the signal you've sent out is clear and that the less interference you create, the faster it can return. This is why many breakthroughs come when you finally stop trying, not because you stop caring, but because you stop panicking. You stop doubting. You created space, and in that space, life could move toward you without needing to fight through the noise of your own resistance. Stillness is not something you schedule once a week. It is a state of being you begin to cultivate moment by moment. It is in how you breathe, how you respond instead of react, how you pause before you speak, how you listen to your body instead of override it. You learn to respect silence, to seek it not just in meditation or nature, but in everyday moments, in how you sip your coffee, in how you walk to your next meeting, in how you sit in the pause between tasks. These small moments are sacred. They recalibrate you. They bring you back to your center. The world will try to pull you into its noise again and again. It will reward speed, volume, and performance. But if you want to manifest from a place of truth, you must return to the inner quiet that reminds you of who you are beyond the roles and responsibilities. Silence doesn't make you less productive. It makes you more potent. It sharpens your intuition. It deepens your presence. It strengthens your magnetic field. In silence, you don't become empty. You become full of the clarity that aligns you with everything you've been trying to reach. The most powerful shifts in your life will not come from doing more. They will come from learning to be still enough to allow. They will come from resting in the quiet confidence that what is meant for you is already yours in frequency and simply making its way into form. And when it arrives, it won't surprise you. It will feel like the natural outcome of who you've become in the silence. Chapter 14. Embodying the version of you who already has it. Manifestation is not about acquiring something outside of yourself. It is about becoming the version of you who lives in alignment with that desire, so naturally, so authentically, that its arrival is no longer a surprise. It's a match. This version of you already exists. It's not a fantasy or a figment of your imagination. It is a potential self, waiting to be stepped into, waiting for you to align with its frequency and begin living from that place. Embodiment is how you bridge the gap between wanting and having. It is how you collapse the space between who you've been and who you are becoming. To embody a new identity is not to fake confidence, pretend to be something you're not, or bypass your current experience. It is a deep and sincere commitment to align your thoughts, behaviors, energy, and decisions with the version of you who already lives in the reality you're calling in. It is not about perfection. It is about congruence. Every day you are making choices that reflect your current identity. When you start making decisions from the perspective of your future self, the one who already has peace, love, abundance, purpose, you begin to change the trajectory of your life in subtle but powerful ways. You cannot continue thinking like the old version of yourself and expect a new life to appear. Your mindset must evolve. Your emotional baseline must shift. Your habits must reflect the energy of arrival, not waiting. This doesn't mean you abandon where you are or force a transformation that hasn't matured. It means you begin to embody that energy now, in small, intentional ways. The future is not a distant goal. It is shaped moment by moment through how you show up, what you tolerate, how you speak to yourself, and what you believe you are worthy of receiving. Start by asking yourself, how would I think if I already had what I want? Notice the difference. The version of you who has already manifested the love, success, peace, or clarity you're seeking would not be anxiously overthinking or constantly doubting. That version of you would be grounded, trusting, open, and present. When you begin to think like that, you create an inner environment that mirrors the external experience you are trying to call in. And since the universe responds to your energy, not your effort, this shift in thinking begins to magnetize the reality that matches your upgraded identity. Then ask, how would I behave if I already had what I want? The answer may surprise you. It often doesn't require grand gestures. It may be as simple as keeping a promise to yourself, holding a boundary, or allowing yourself more rest. It may mean speaking up when you usually stay quiet, or choosing joy in moments where you usually wait for permission. The way you walk, the way you carry yourself, the way you enter a room. All of these are expressions of embodiment, and the more consistently you behave from your desired identity, the more your current reality begins to shift to match it. The body plays an essential role in this transformation. Your nervous system must feel safe in the new identity. If the idea of success, love, or expansion triggers fear, your body will resist, even if your mind is on board. That resistance will show up as procrastination, self-sabotage, or confusion. This is why embodiment must include the body. You need to regulate your nervous system to accept new levels of ease, visibility, and abundance. Practices like breath work, stillness, mindful movement, and even how you dress or care for your physical self are all parts of this process. When your body feels safe, your energy becomes more coherent, and coherence is what makes you magnetic. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself regularly is, what would my next level self do in this moment? This isn't about pretending to be perfect or forcing an idealized version of yourself into the present. It's about accessing wisdom that already lives within you. It's about using that clarity to guide your decisions, especially when fear or habit tries to take over. When you choose an alignment with your higher self, even if it feels uncomfortable, you expand your capacity to hold more of what you've been asking for. Embodiment is not about waiting for evidence before you shift. It is about becoming the evidence. You no longer wait for the relationship to feel loved, for the success to feel worthy, for the money to feel secure. You feel those things now. Not in a superficial way, but as a commitment to living from the truth that you are already whole. You choose thoughts that support your vision. You take actions that honor your worth. You speak words that reflect your knowing. And over time, this version of you becomes your new normal. You will know you are embodying your desired self when you stop needing constant reassurance. When you feel peace in moments of silence. When you stop negotiating your value. When you start trusting your own timing instead of comparing your journey. When you make choices that feel expansive, not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you've finally accepted that your desires are an extension of who you already are. This way of living is not about chasing, it is about claiming. You don't have to wait to be chosen, you choose yourself. You don't have to wait for permission, you give yourself the authority. You don't have to prove you're ready, you begin to live as if you are, and in doing so you become it. Manifestation is not magic, it is resonance, and the more fully you embody the version of you who already has it, the more naturally life will rise to meet you there. Chapter 15. Testing Times and Energetic Neutrality. There comes a point in every manifestation journey when things appear to stall. The energy that once felt exciting now feels uncertain. You've done the inner work, shifted your mindset, committed to alignment, and released what needed to be let go. You've embodied the version of you who is ready. But still, the outcome remains just out of reach. This is often the moment people feel tempted to give up, question everything, or revert to old patterns of doubt and control. But what's really happening in these moments is a test, not from the universe's punishment or judgment, but from your own field of energy. You are being asked to hold your new frequency without external confirmation. You are being called to remain energetically neutral, even as your old reality tries to pull you back into fear. These testing times are not setbacks. They are invitations. They ask, can you hold the vision without panic? Can you trust the process without constant evidence? Can you remain grounded in your new identity, even when the world hasn't caught up yet? This is the energetic threshold between your old reality and your new one. What you do here matters, not because you need to perform for the universe, but because your response reveals how integrated your transformation truly is. It's easy to trust when everything is flowing. The real shift happens when you can stay in faith while life appears unchanged. Energetic neutrality is the ability to observe what's happening without assigning it dramatic meaning. It's the skill of witnessing your circumstances without letting them hijack your emotional state. When a delay shows up, neutrality doesn't label it as failure. When someone disappoints you, neutrality doesn't spiral into a story of abandonment. When results don't match your expectations, neutrality doesn't jump to the conclusion that you're doing something wrong. Instead, it stays centered. It says, I see what's happening, but I choose not to react from fear. I choose to stay in my alignment. I choose to remain a clear vessel for what I know is coming. This level of neutrality is not numbness. It is not detachment born from indifference. It is the calm that comes from deep inner trust. When you are neutral, you are not without desire. You are without resistance. You've reached a point where you don't need constant validation to feel safe. You can be in the space between what was and what is becoming and not collapse into doubt. This is where your energetic field becomes steady. It stops sending mixed signals. It stops wobbling between belief and disbelief. It becomes consistent, and that consistency is what allows manifestation to complete. The universe does not withhold, but it does respond to coherence. If your energy says yes one moment and no the next, it waits. Not to punish, but to mirror. Testing times are where you refine your coherence. You begin to spot the cracks in your foundation, the places where your belief falters, where your old stories still have a voice. And you don't shame yourself for it. You hold those parts with compassion. You tend to them not to fix them, but to integrate them. You teach yourself again and again that it is safe to stay steady even when you don't yet see the result. Many people interpret testing times as signs that their manifestation isn't working, but more often than not, it's the opposite. It's a sign that you're close, that your field is recalibrating, that your reality is adjusting. But before the shift becomes visible, you must pass through the threshold of neutrality. You must hold your new identity so clearly, so consistently, that the old reality can no longer find a place to stick. This doesn't mean pretending things are perfect. It means refusing to abandon yourself when they're not. You stop negotiating your energy with the outside world. You stop asking for signs that you're worthy. You already know. In testing times, the most powerful thing you can do is return to presence. Don't overanalyze. Don't chase answers. Don't spiral into fixing mode. Just breathe. Ground yourself in this moment. Ask yourself, what would the version of me who already has it do right now? Maybe she would go for a walk. Maybe she would rest. Maybe she would laugh, dance, or simply exhale. The smallest act of self-trust can shift your entire frequency. And when you choose alignment in the absence of results, you collapse timelines. You show that you no longer need proof to believe. You've become the proof. Energetic neutrality is a kind of maturity. It's the end of bargaining with the universe. It's the end of emotional whiplash. It's where your inner world stops being a reaction to the outer and starts being the source of your stability. From this place, you don't just attract your desires. You hold them with ease when they arrive, because you've built the inner structure to support them. You've created a nervous system that doesn't panic when reality fluctuates. You've cultivated a mindset that doesn't collapse when results take time. And most importantly, you've become someone who no longer confuses silence with absence or waiting with failure. These are the moments that define your next chapter, not because of what happens outside, but because of who you choose to be inside. Hold the vision. Hold the peace. Let your energy speak louder than your fear. The old reality may echo for a while, but it's fading. Your neutrality is the signal that you're no longer feeding it. You're aligned. You're steady. Chapter 16. Choosing faith over fear. Every desire you have stretches you. It pulls you toward growth, toward the unknown, toward a version of yourself that exists just beyond the edge of your current comfort. And with every step closer to that vision, something else also rises. Fear. It shows up quietly at first, as hesitation, as overthinking, as the need for certainty. Then it becomes louder, manifesting as doubt, distraction, and even self-sabotage. Fear is not proof that something is wrong. It is evidence that you are expanding, that you are walking toward a reality your old self has never lived in before. It is entirely human to feel fear in the face of change. But at every point in your journey, you are given a choice: to feed the fear or to lean into faith. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move in alignment with your vision even when fear is present. It is the practice of choosing trust over panic, clarity over confusion, and alignment over control. You don't need to eliminate fear to manifest. You need to stop letting it lead. Fear will always offer its opinion. It will point out the risks, the delays, the past disappointments. It will try to protect you by keeping you small. Faith doesn't deny these voices. It simply refuses to be governed by them. It speaks from a deeper place, the part of you that remembers who you are, what you're capable of, and why you're here. Choosing faith means deciding that what you want is not just possible, but already aligning. It means holding the energy of "I trust," even when the evidence isn't visible yet. This kind of trust isn't naive. It's rooted in experience, in the quiet knowing that life has carried you before and will carry you again. It's built on the memory of all the times things worked out, especially when you didn't see how they could. You strengthen this faith every time you stay true to your vision in the face of delay, every time you choose presence over panic, every time you decide not to abandon yourself when things get uncomfortable. Fear lives in the future. It speculates, it imagines worst-case scenarios, it tries to prepare you for outcomes that haven't even happened. Faith brings you back to now. It grounds you in the only place where true change happens, the present moment. When you are rooted in the present, you are less susceptible to fear because you are not projecting yourself into 1,000 possible futures. You are simply being, trusting, showing up with integrity, and in that presence, you regain access to your inner wisdom, to your intuition, to your calm. Faith does not always feel like a grand declaration. Often it's a quiet choice made in the privacy of your own mind. It's choosing not to check the outcome one more time. It's choosing to get on with your day even when the manifestation hasn't arrived. It's choosing to believe that what you want is on its way, not because you need to prove it to anyone, but because it feels true to you. These small acts of faith recalibrate your energy. They send a clear message. I no longer require fear to guide me. I choose to trust instead. Every time you choose faith over fear, you shift timelines. You collapse resistance. You step out of the vibration of "what if it doesn't work" and into the vibration of "it's already working." This is not about blind optimism. It's about alignment. When you live from faith, your actions carry more power because they are no longer reactive. They are intentional. They are grounded in your vision rather than your fears. Even the smallest step taken in faith moves you further than 100 steps taken in fear. Fear will always try to convince you that you need more certainty before you can rest, before you can believe, before you can allow. But that certainty you crave will not come from the outside. It must be chosen from within. You don't need to know how everything will unfold. You just need to know that you'll continue walking the path, step by step, no matter how many turns it takes. You choose faith by trusting in your capacity to meet what comes, by remembering that alignment creates momentum, and by believing that you are never walking alone in your vision. Faith also means allowing your nervous system to feel safe in stillness, to sit with the unknown without rushing to fix it, to soften into patience instead of reaching for control. These are not passive states. They are powerful recalibrations of your entire energy field. They tell life, I am not desperate, I am not afraid, I am ready. And when you hold that frequency, not as a performance, but as a truth, the things you desire begin to move toward you with ease. Fear will visit again, that is certain. It may arrive in moments of silence, in setbacks, in changes that catch you off guard. But when it does, you will be ready. You will recognize it not as a signal to stop, but as a sign that you're evolving, and you will choose again and again to trust, to breathe, to move forward, to hold the vision without gripping, to walk your path with faith, not because you are sure of every detail, but because you are sure of yourself. Chapter 17. The Art of Non-Reaction. There is a quiet power in restraint, not the kind of restraint that comes from suppression or fear, but the kind that emerges from clarity and inner maturity. In a world that demands instant responses, that thrives on urgency and emotional volatility, choosing not to react becomes a radical act of sovereignty. It is in your moments of non-reaction that your alignment is tested and strengthened. This is not about pretending to be unaffected, nor is it about becoming passive or indifferent. It is about choosing where your energy flows and refusing to let temporary circumstances or fleeting triggers pull you out of the frequency you've worked so hard to cultivate. Non-reaction is not numbness. It is a state of presence. It is the gap between stimulus and response where your power lives. Most people move through life reacting from habit, a comment, a delay, a disappointment, and they are instantly pulled into a familiar loop of frustration, fear, or doubt. They respond not from awareness, but from programming. These reactions are not necessarily loud. They can be internal spirals, mental stories, subtle shifts in energy. But each time you react from that old place, you reinforce the version of yourself that aligns with the past, not the future you're stepping into. To master non-reaction is to master your state. It is to become the observer of your inner world rather than its prisoner. This doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. It means you give yourself space to feel without letting the feeling dictate your next move. You begin to notice the pause, that sacred pause before the urge to explain, to defend, to panic, to fix. In that pause you ask, who am I being right now? Am I acting from fear or from clarity? Am I choosing alignment or just trying to relieve discomfort? The more you practice living in that pause, the more grounded you become. Non-reaction doesn't mean inaction, it means intentional action. It's the difference between yelling in frustration and calmly stating a boundary. It's the difference between rushing to solve a problem and taking time to feel into the right solution. It's the difference between chasing validation and knowing your worth is intact no matter what someone else says or does. When you stop reacting, you stop leaking energy. You stop feeding stories that don't serve you. You stop reinforcing patterns that are incompatible with your vision. This practice is especially important during times of transition, when the old reality is dissolving and the new one has not yet fully landed. These are the moments where your nervous system may be agitated, where your mind may crave control, where your ego may scream for attention. And yet, these are the most fertile grounds for transformation. The less you react to the noise of what's leaving, the more space you create for what's arriving. If you can hold steady while everything inside you wants to flinch, you anchor a new energetic standard. You prove to yourself that you are no longer living at the mercy of the external. Non-reaction also creates clarity in relationships. It allows you to see people and situations more clearly, not through the filter of your emotional history, but through the lens of neutrality. You no longer assign meaning to every comment or action. You no longer take things personally that were never yours to carry. This does not make you cold. It makes you wise. It allows you to respond with precision instead of assumption. It allows you to lead with presence instead of projection. And most importantly, it keeps you tethered to your own truth rather than caught in the emotional tides of others. One of the greatest shifts you can make in your manifestation journey is to stop measuring progress based on how things look in the moment and start measuring it by how consistently you can hold your energy regardless of the moment. Can you stay rooted when your expectations aren't immediately met? Can you keep your heart open when fear tries to close it? Can you continue to believe in your vision without needing constant reassurance? These are the questions that reveal your growth. These are the moments where your field becomes magnetic, not because of what you're doing, but because of who you're being. Non-reaction is not something you master overnight. It's a daily practice, a constant return to center. You will still get triggered. You will still feel the urge to react. But now you will notice, and in that noticing, you create choice. You create spaciousness. You create a new pattern. Over time, your baseline shifts. You become less emotionally volatile, less dependent on outcomes, less reactive to other people's moods or opinion. And in that stability, your energy becomes undeniable. You no longer need to push or explain. Your presence speaks louder than your reactions ever could. True power is quiet. It does not perform. It does not rush. It does not need to prove. And the more you live in that quiet power, the more you realize that your life is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to meet it. Choosing non-reaction is choosing self-leadership. It is choosing to trust your own alignment more than the pull of the moment. It is choosing to hold your field steady even when everything around you wobbles. And in that steadiness, your manifestations find a clear path into your life, not through force, but through resonance. Chapter 18. Trusting the Unseen Timeline. One of the most difficult lessons in manifestation is learning to trust what you cannot yet see. There is an internal ache that comes with holding a vision so clearly, feeling it in your bones, knowing in your spirit that it's meant for you, yet watching the days pass without visible confirmation. It is in these moments that your patience is tested, your faith stretched, and your identity questioned. You wonder if you're doing something wrong, if you misunderstood the signs, or if the dream was never real to begin with. But manifestation does not operate according to the timelines we create in our minds. It moves in alignment with readiness, with energy, with divine order. And that means your timeline will rarely be predictable or logical, but it will always be perfect. There is a deeper wisdom at play, one that sees the full picture when you can only see a fragment. Life is not just arranging your desires, it's arranging you. It's aligning people, experiences, opportunities, and inner shifts that you might not yet be aware of. Often, things are moving long before you notice. Progress is unfolding in dimensions you can't measure with your eyes. This is where so many people lose their alignment. They confuse the lack of visible movement with a lack of movement altogether. They assume that silence means nothing is happening, But silence is often a sign that something important is being prepared. In the stillness, the foundations are laid. In the quiet, things are coming together in ways that will make sense only later. To trust the unseen timeline is to surrender your need to control how and when things unfold. It is to understand that life is not ignoring you. It is orchestrating something that matches your highest alignment, not just your immediate desire. There's a difference. Immediate desire wants what feels good now. Highest alignment considers what will serve your long-term growth, expansion. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it is not a rejection. It is a redirection. It is life saying, not this way, not this moment, but still, yes, still on the way, still coming. This kind of trust doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you stop showing up, taking aligned action, or refining your energy. It means you stop measuring your progress based on external feedback. It means you stop assuming that every delay is a denial. It means you begin to root your trust in something deeper than results. You root it in your relationship with life itself. And in that relationship, you no longer need constant reassurance. You begin to understand that just because you can't see something growing doesn't mean the roots aren't deepening. Not all growth is visible. Some of it happens in silence, in shadow, in solitude. The unseen timeline also serves your emotional maturity. It teaches you how to regulate your nervous system without external validation. It invites you to find peace before the answer comes, to cultivate joy before the reward arrives, to stand firm in your identity before it is mirrored back to you. This is not just about getting what you want. This is about becoming the person who can hold what you want without breaking under the weight of it. If you received everything you asked for today, could you hold it with grace, presence, and integrity? That's what the unseen timeline is preparing you for, not just the moment of manifestation, but the life that comes after it. To trust the timing of your life is to release the illusion that faster is better. It is to stop comparing your path to others. It is to recognize that every delay, every redirection, every pause is part of a larger rhythm that you are only beginning to understand. You are not late. You are not being tested. You are being calibrated. Your reality is catching up to your energy, and that process takes as long as it needs to take. Not to punish you, but to refine you. Not to frustrate you, but to prepare you. This trust becomes easier when you shift your focus from the outcome to the present. What can you honor in this moment? What can you enjoy, celebrate, or appreciate today? What part of your current experience is preparing you for the very thing you're waiting for? Often the tools, the lessons, the clarity you'll need later are being delivered now, disguised as stillness, disguised as challenge. But if you stay present, you begin to see the pattern. You begin to understand that the timeline was never against you. It was always working on your behalf, even when it stretched beyond what your mind preferred. When you trust the unseen, you become less reactive, less frantic, less desperate for proof. You stop trying to force the seed to grow before it's ready. You stop pulling at the petals of a flower that is still blooming. You learn to be with the process, to walk with the unfolding, to meet each moment with enough grace that when your desire does arrive, it feels less like a surprise and more like a homecoming, because by then you've already become the person who lives in that reality. You've already done the inner work. You've already matched the frequency. And so when the outer form appears, it's simply the final piece of what you've been embodying all along. Chapter 19. Gratitude as an Anchor. Gratitude is more than a pleasant sentiment or a polite response to kindness. It is an energetic anchor that stabilizes your frequency and grounds you in the present moment. In the process of manifestation, where desires often extend into the unseen, where outcomes unfold on timelines beyond your control, gratitude becomes one of your most powerful tools. It bridges the gap between what is and what is coming. It says, I trust what's here, and I trust what's next. When practiced consciously, gratitude is not a passive act. It is a profound declaration of alignment. Many people treat gratitude as something reserved for after the manifestation, a feeling to be experienced once the results arrive. They wait until the desire is fulfilled to feel thankful, using gratitude as a reward rather than a path. But the real magic happens when gratitude precedes the outcome. When you can genuinely feel grateful for what you have, even as you call in more, you shift your entire energetic posture. You stop broadcasting lack. You stop living in a state of waiting. You begin to emit the frequency of already having, already being, already enough. This energy is not just comforting, it is magnetic. It draws in more of what you appreciate because it signals that your field is open, receptive, and aligned. Gratitude tells the universe, I am aware, I am present. I recognize the goodness already in motion. This creates a coherent vibration, one that is stable, resilient, and clear. And in manifestation, coherence is everything. It's what allows desires to move from possibility into form without the resistance of doubt, fear, or impatience. Gratitude also keeps you from falling into the illusion that your life begins once the manifestation arrives. That is one of the most common traps on the path of creation, believing that happiness, peace, worthiness, or fulfillment are conditions that depend on external circumstances. This mindset not only delays your joy, but also sends a mixed signal into the field. If your energy is built on the belief that something is missing, then that belief becomes the dominant frequency. Gratitude interrupts that cycle. It brings you back to the fullness of now. It reminds you that there is always something working, always something unfolding in your favor, even if it is not yet visible. The practice of gratitude is not about forcing yourself to feel good when you don't. It is about choosing to shift your focus, to widen your perception, to look again and see what you may have overlooked. It is easy to miss the quiet ways in which life is supporting you, the timely conversation, the sudden clarity, the delay that prevented a misstep, the strength you gained from what didn't work out. Gratitude invites you to tune into these moments, to acknowledge the invisible grace that is always present, and in doing so, to align more deeply with the flow of life. You can use gratitude as a daily recalibration tool. When your mind spirals into what's missing or how long it's taking, you pause and return to what's working. You don't bypass your feelings, but you don't build a home in frustration either. You allow gratitude to gently bring you back to your power. You remember that your energy is your responsibility and that no external delay can rob you of your capacity to choose a new lens. In this way, gratitude becomes a daily practice of sovereignty. It helps you hold your field steady when circumstances waver. Gratitude is also a profound healer. It softens the heart. It soothes the nervous system. It dissolves comparison and invites connection. When you are grateful, you are no longer operating from lack or competition. You are living from abundance. And abundance is not just about money or material gain. It is a way of seeing. It is a recognition of enoughness in all its forms, enough support, enough time, enough wisdom, enough presence. This perspective changes how you engage with others, how you speak about your life, and how you receive what is offered to you. To deepen this energy, make space for quiet moments of reflection, not performative gratitude but sincere acknowledgement. You can write it down, speak it aloud, or simply feel it in your body. Let your awareness settle on what is true, what is good, what is quietly unfolding. This doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be as simple as the sunlight through the window, the breath in your lungs, the peace of a small decision made with clarity. When you learn to appreciate the subtle, you become a magnet for the extraordinary. Gratitude is not a strategy, it is a state of being. It is a steady reminder that you are already connected to what you seek, that your life is already full of signs, already rich with meaning, already aligned in ways you may not yet fully grasp. And when you choose to live from that awareness, you stop chasing what you want. You start receiving it. You start noticing that your field becomes more spacious, more open, more in rhythm with your desire. Your gratitude is not just a response to life, it is a co-creative force within it. It is the signal you send that you are in tune, that you are ready, that you trust the unfolding. And from that signal, life responds. Not because you begged, but because you remembered what was already working. And from that remembrance, the path clears. The next step becomes obvious, and the reality you've been calling in begins to meet you in the moment you stop waiting for it and start living as if it's already here. Chapter 20. Living as the magnetic self. There comes a point in the journey of alignment and manifestation where you stop practicing abundance as a concept and start living it as an identity. You no longer perform the rituals of self-worth, you embody them. You no longer need to remind yourself every morning that you are enough. You simply operate from that truth. The vision board becomes less about what you're calling in and more a reflection of who you already are. The magnetic self is not a persona you step into occasionally. It is your natural state when you stop diluting your energy to please, perform, or prove. To live as the magnetic self is to move through life with inner steadiness. It's the confidence that arises from deep alignment, the clarity that speaks without noise, the presence that doesn't beg for attention yet draws it effortlessly. This way of being is not loud or dramatic. It doesn't chase validation or demand recognition. It simply is. The magnetic self does not ask if it is allowed to receive. It does not wait for permission to expand. It does not second-guess its place in the room, in the world, or in its own story. It knows. And because it knows, life reflects that knowing back in the form of opportunities, ease, and flow. This is not the self you access only during meditation or in moments of solitude. It is the self you bring into conversations, into decisions, into how you eat, walk, speak, rest, and rise. Living as the magnetic self means you honor your time. You no longer explain your boundaries endlessly, nor do you collapse them to accommodate others. You respect your energy, and in doing so invite others to do the same. You are not hard or guarded. You are open with discernment. You let things in not because you fear missing out, but because they match your field. The magnetic self does not live in waiting. It doesn't defer peace, joy, or self-love until some imagined future arrives. It knows that the most powerful way to speed up the timeline of a desire is to stop needing it to complete you. It no longer uses absence as an excuse to shrink. It fills the present with so much richness, presence, and integrity that the future becomes a natural extension of the now. This way of living is not about forcing confidence. It is about remembering who you were before the world taught you to doubt yourself. To live as the magnetic self is to release the habit of over-explaining your worth. You no longer try to convince others of your value because you no longer question it yourself. You stop apologizing for your power, your clarity, your standards. You understand that those who are aligned will meet you in your energy, not your compromise. The magnetic self does not dominate a room, it simply calibrates it. By walking in with clean, grounded energy, it doesn't need to be right, it needs to be true. And that truth radiates far beyond words. Living this way means making choices that reflect your desired reality, not your fears. You no longer delay the life you want by waiting for perfect conditions. You create moments of beauty now. You cultivate intimacy, freedom, and joy in your current reality, not as a substitute, but as a statement. I already live in the energy of my desire. I already embody the version of me who has arrived. This embodiment is not about pretend. It is about choosing again and again to honor your inner world as the foundation of your external experience. You stop treating alignment as a task and begin to see it as your natural state. You clear space not because you have to, but because you want your environment to reflect the clarity within. You simplify not out of lack, but out of reverence for your focus. You hold your standards not to push people away, but to keep your energy clean. Everything becomes intentional, not rigid, but refined. Your life starts to feel like a reflection of your truth, not a reaction to your fear. The magnetic self lives in gentle certainty. It lets go of things with grace. It attracts without effort. It acts with presence. It doesn't need external circumstances to stay consistent. It doesn't panic when things shift. It adjusts, adapts, and continues to trust the current. This self has learned that the universe is not against it, that silence is not absence, that delay is not denial. It understands that what is aligned cannot miss it, and that it doesn't need to grip anything to keep it close. It lives in a state of relaxed receptivity, which is the most powerful frequency of all. This is the final evolution of the journey, not to chase what you want, not to wait for it, not even to believe in it, but to live from it. To wake up every day and act as the one who already is, to speak as the one who already has, to decide as the one who already knows. From this place, life responds not because you've finally earned it, but because you finally remembered you never had to. You've returned to your natural state of power, presence, and peace. You've stopped waiting. You've started being. And in that being, everything aligns, not as a reward, but as a reflection. Let this be your reminder that the work was never to become worthy. It was to remember that you already are, that you've always been. And from that remembrance you now live, not as someone trying to manifest, but as someone who already has, not because it all showed up, but because you finally did. This has never been about chasing what you want. It has always been about remembering who you are without the noise. You were never meant to beg the universe for what your energy was designed to attract. You were never meant to exhaust yourself proving your worth in hopes that life would finally respond. You were meant to clear the static, align your field, and receive from a place of calm power, not performance. Detach to attract is not a clever phrase. It's a lived frequency. It is the choice to no longer grip what you desire, but to become the version of you who knows it's already hers. It's the quiet, steady confidence that no longer needs to shout, explain, or convince. It is a way of being that says, I am enough now. I am not waiting. I am not reaching. I am allowing. And in that allowance, everything flows. You become what you quietly expect, not what you beg for, not what you obsess over, not what you pretend to believe. You become what your energy naturally settles into when you stop trying to manipulate life. And the only way to sustain this frequency is to come home to yourself again and again. To stay rooted in your inner knowing even when your outer world hasn't caught up yet. To make peace your baseline, not your reward. To release timelines, rewrite your emotional defaults, and walk your path as if the outcome is already inevitable. Let this book not just be something you read, but something you live. Let it remind you, when doubt creeps in or the silence stretches too long, that everything shifts when you do. That your calm is your compass. That your stillness is your signal. That your expectation, quiet, embodied, unshakable, is the loudest invitation you can send into the universe. You don't need to chase. You don't need to beg. You don't need to wait. You just need to align, to embody, to trust, and to remember.